All right, so let's take a look here. All right, so we've got here's this matchup. Couldn't do a fancy graphic. We got Dustin playing Baratheon for Team USA, and we have Vojta, I'm guessing. I don't know. I apologize for
That's
the mispronunciation. Playing Martell. This is Martell Dragon, VD and VM.
yeah.
Uh,
And the real spice of this deck is it's a bribery deck with mercenary contract, so he has the potential of being able to put mercenary contract on Dustin's characters and then using bribery to just steal them and take control of them for good, which is obnoxious to put it simply, especially since Dustin has a lot of impactful characters that he generally wants to Voltron up. Uh, the one saving grace Dustin has is the Stannis Baratheon he's using in his deck is immune to events.
mm-hmm.
So Stannis is going to be his Voltron of choice to try and get going. So it won't turn into a build up a giant Voltron with power on it, and all of a sudden, one mercenary contract bribery later, the character is gone and the game is swung completely.
Okay, this doesn't look too bad, other than the no red priest reaction, right?
Yeah, the Red Priest Sun setup isn't great, but this is definitely a decent setup all around. Like 5 cards plus an attachment. Martell has Card in Shadows, Water Gardens, Dornish Fiefdom, Desert Raider, so some good pieces on that end as well. Especially getting the Dornish Fiefdom, because that's going to be able to fuel all the shenanigans the Martell decks wanting to get going. We do have an aggressive Valor Morghulis to open up this game
Whoa.
from the Martell side, which makes sense. They're going to be putting Desert Raider immediately into the dead pile, just getting that going. And it's going to put 3 characters right into the dead pile. This VM right here makes me think this Shadows card might be Sergeus Drinkwater, because he's able to swap out a plot from the use pile with a plot you haven't played yet.
Hmm.
So
He'll
in
get
like
it
a
right
turn or
back.
two,
Yeah.
he could possibly swap it out and get Valor Morghulis back in the event Dustin like tries to get greedy here and start putting down like characters without any bodyguards or saves. But we'll have Dustin grabbing Gates of the Moon. He's made Martell first. So they'll get the +1 gold since there's no attachments in play from cohort. So they're starting off with 4 gold, beefed them for 5. So they've got some econ to work with here. Dustin himself is going to be working with 6 gold plus the Dragonstone port. So hopefully he's not stuck with a lot of high cost characters. But since he went at the gates over a loan from the Iron Bank, that would seem to indicate to me that he can put down a decent set of characters here without needing to spend a lot. And we do get more econ as well. So Ser Jorah, very efficient body, Desert Raider as well to just further cause annoyance. And we get Sir Emery Florent and Selyse Baratheon. And then we're going to get a bodyguard down on Selyse as well. So not a great set of bodies, but it's at least ones
Right.
you can really start working with.
Does it matter that they're both R'hllor? Is that, or no? I'm sorry, they're not both R'hllor. Selyse is, and then what? Emery, you want to see later in the game. He's kind of a closing power type of thing, right?
Yeah, he's not. His biggest impact is usually coming down on your closeout turn, and then you immediately trigger his ability to kill him, sack a bunch of locations, and just kneel out a board, or at least kneel out most of a board, and then just close out from there. He's still a decent body, a 3-for-2 Bicon, so even without his effect, just getting a body on the board, especially one that's not ally traded or mercenary traded, is not a bad thing here.
Why do you think that Dustin is going power here instead of intrigue?
Well, he still has a possible intrigue option.
Oh yeah.
Um, because Selyse, you can spend a gold to give a Bara icon an intrigue icon.
Oh, gotcha.
So he might be just trying to tempt out the Desert Raider here because he can't hand over a power icon, but he can hand over the intrigue. So if he had led with like power with Celise, could have been an issue. He still could have I think she can give herself an intrigue icon, so he still would have had a route if he went
Now,
power
would
first.
would it be an acceptable play for a Desert Raider to take an intrigue icon from Emery Florent right now?
Uh, it would have been to at least like remove that option completely. Um, that
Okay.
and that may have been why the ordering was done that way. He could have certainly done power with Emery Florent if he was wanting to push the intrigue. Now, Sir Jorah, of course, could block it, gain renown.
Yeah.
So he was likely just taking the
What?
unopposed and calling it.
Why do you there should have been an option to bring the Desert Raider in, right? And declined, or did I not understand something?
No, they declined it because since they're going, Martell was going first. All they were really doing was just taking an icon, and at
Mm-hmm.
that point, like at most, you can take intrigue off Emery Florent, and you're just like, well, okay, you gave him a power
Yeah.
and not much else. You've put another body on the board, which isn't going to be as impactful as you really want. Because you really do want to have the Desert Raider being able to start doing the shenanigans on turns where it matters, and that first one
Yep.
really doesn't.
Yep.
Uh, Now we do have Dustin here. He's got Stannis down, so that's going to help him a lot. And he's also got Azor Ahai Reborn, and he's got Red God's Blessing. So this is very good for him. Again, with the Valor currently buried,
Right. We'll see.
save's not an issue.
We'll see how buried
He
it stays.
yeah, if Drinkwaters and Shadows, I could definitely see them going for that line to go ahead and
But he's
grab their
got some,
Valor.
especially under cohort, he's got some options to get a bodyguard on
Yes.
Stannis,
Yeah.
right?
He can turn the Red God's Blessing into a bodyguard, which isn't ideal. Uh, the alternative option would actually be turn that bodyguard on Celise into a Warhammer, and then the
Mm-hmm.
Warhammer into a bodyguard by winning 2 challenges and getting onto Stannis. So that's one way he can juggle it around. And then he can also, if he's able to get all 3 challenges through, he can turn Red God's Blessing into Lightbringer, and then we have a full-on Voltron Stannis ready to go because he'll have Renown. He's participating in all attacking challenges, so that's going to really put the pressure on at that point. And the other big thing right now is none of Dustin's characters have the ally or mercenary trait. So the only way bribery is going to really be able to steal a character is if mercenary contract's in hand. And again, Stannis can't be stolen, so that's really helpful for Dustin right now. So this was a very good marshal for Dustin so far.
Mm-hmm.
And because he's definitely want to speed this game up and just start going as fast as possible. And again, this Desert Raider in the dead pile, because of Celise, stealing intrigue icons and between Azor Ahai Reborn on Stannis, that's going to make keeping Stannis out of 3 challenges really tough.
Mm-hmm. Does he have a way to recycle stuff out of his discard pile? Is there an Isle of Ravens in here somewhere?
For Dustin, no.
Okay.
No, once the attachment hits the discard pile, it's there for good. Same on the Martell side. So once it's discarded, it's gone. With the exception of Unexpected Return on the Martell Dragon side, they do have 1 copy of that, so you can spend 5 gold to put a character from the discard pile right into play. So there are some tricks you can do with that, especially. Yeah, because even in, like, I'd say an average econ start, which this Martell lineup currently is doing quite well with the 2 fiefdoms and then Water Guardians on top of that, it can definitely start rolling if it sees its pieces.
Venomous Blade would be pretty good for Martell right now, right?
Venomous Blade is testing this matchup is very big. And speaking of which,
Yep.
here it comes.
As soon as I saw Water Gardens, I'm like,
Yep. Yeah. So Venomous Blade coming down to put a poison token on the R'hllor Infiltrator, just to further attrition the board down.
Yeah, but that's also that's kind of like one less challenge for Stannis in a sense, right?
Potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, potentially, yeah. Uh, and having it on the Desert Raider is also very annoying because since Venice Blade's based on printed strength, everyone but Stannis right now on that board could be killed with a Venomous Blade, and that makes military challenges
Mm-hmm.
not ideal for Dustin to do because they'll immediately just claim the Desert Raider, get the Venomous Blade back, and then next turn, down it comes again.
But it is interesting. Like he's now gone on to play Ariane, and he could have played the
Yeah,
Venomous
he
Blade on
could have.
Ariane and had more control about getting it back into hand.
Yep, absolutely. So interesting they decided to not go that route because Ariane is also one of the classic targets because you can just
Mm-hmm.
immediately pull it back to hand and easily recur it. So if Dustin just shies away from doing military challenges at this point, it doesn't really matter. We do have Dustin leading off. He's doing an intrigue challenge first for 11. Interesting, he's leading off with the intrigue here because I was almost expecting him to do a power challenge with Stannis, win it, and then the Desert Raider can either can attempt to take an intrigue icon, which is fine because you can then again, you. Well, actually, he has no gold.
He has no
Excuse me.
gold,
So
so yeah.
yeah, yeah, that line actually isn't there.
So you think you're going to
So
see the bodyguard pop here?
um, we
Ooh,
actually have
okay,
Arahota coming down instead.
okay.
Uh, and
That's a good
that's
move.
definitely, yeah, it's rough position there.
But that's interesting. Like, what did you really save so much? I mean, like you
Um,
didn't get a challenge out of Ariane. I always like try to get that challenge out of Ariane before you pop her ability, and that didn't happen. But
Yeah. Well, since it was an intrigue challenge, it's quite possible Hota was going to get ripped out of hand.
yeah.
The problem is now it does set up Stannis to go for two challenges here if he wants to do the military, because he's able to go into Lightbringer here, stand Stannis up.
Mm-hmm.
And there's, let's see, just on a military count, the military can be won on the Martell side as is. So it's very possible Dustin's just going to go ahead and swing with Stannis again. He'll opt not to, so he'll just hold back. So
So no bodyguard into Warhammer there to get a intimidate, right? He
yeah,
doesn't.
it was. The moment he lost winning the intrigue challenge, that line wasn't as great because since he's going to eat this military, having that bodyguard he can at least save,
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Keep a body.
and
Yeah.
keep his board up. But we actually have military just being poked for 3, so Stannis is going to jump in front of this one. So I expect Desert Raider to come in here and strip, the power icon off Sir Emery Florent, so then he can get get the intrigue and power challenge through. Because at this point, because Stannis is essentially now in go mode, he needs to be able to uh, both keep the power total from Dustin's side down and also just start slowing him down. Like Stannis at 7 strength, especially with Azor High Reborn, is going to do a lot of damage. We do have Red God's Blessing pulled, which does hurt because that's another attachment that just allows Stannis to get big and beefy on the board, and once you get a Warhammer on him from there,
Mm-hmm.
it's over, because Stannis is just going to start wrecking havoc on the board. Um,
So yeah, having Valor already in the used plot pile does give Dustin a lot of freedom here. Like he doesn't have to worry about getting a bodyguard on Stannis, which normally he would care a lot about here, right?
Yeah, exactly. He does still want to definitely get a save because he knows Drinkwater is definitely a threat, and all it takes is Drinkwater coming out, grabbing the Valor back, and then if you don't have the bodyguard or dupe on Stannis by next turn, you're in trouble.
There you go, Steve. Here's what's in the dead pile. And I think,
So we,
yeah, it was these three, and then the infiltrator was hit by the venomous blade in marshaling of turn one.
yep. So plot flips. We have Force March into Valor to Hyrus. This Hyrus is actually going to work out kind of rather well for Dustin because the Force March he's going to be able to push uh, most of this board down, and then he'll just toss their Emery Florent. So Emery doing his part on the Force March, and we have Stannis also knelt as well. So that's getting 3 characters through, and just do the math. So yeah, Martell can keep their entire board right now because they have exactly 9 gold worth of characters. And we'll have Stannis and Selyse kept on Dustin's side.
And the thing is like as long as he can put down some R'hllor characters, this will kind of take care of itself. Is that the idea?
Yeah, roller characters, or if he has possibly Seal the Hand, like in his
Mm-hmm.
hand, he can always play that out as well. We actually do have the Desert Raider that had the Venomous Blade put to the bottom of the deck,
Mm-hmm.
so just to recur the blade back immediately. But that is also good news for Dustin because that's one less Desert Raider to contend with, especially since Exchange of Information was already flipped. So I don't, outside of like Aegon, uh, offhand, I don't think there's any ways for the Martell player to shuffle their deck. We do have Melisandre hitting this board and further kneeling down this open board. So even with Venomous Blade, having that bodyguard is really big because Selyse is going to be able to survive. Melisandre being on board is going to help. And we have a Seized by the Guard hitting that Water Garden, so that's going to further stifle the econ capability. So Venomous Blade can still hit the board, but it's going to cost the full 3.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, Steve. Is that Stannis just seems to participate in one challenge and he'll stand from Lightbringer. But
Yep. And not having a Desert Raider in the dead pile allows a lot more versatility in terms of your sequencing. So you will likely have Intrigue let off, Arahota on the board already as long as it goes through, stands up, and then you can clean out the other challenges as well. But we do have Tangled on the Martell side, and we know they have Ariane. We still have the card in Shadows, which could be, again, Aegon or Sir Jairus Drinkwater. So they still definitely have resources that they're able to work with. And 11 cards in hand, so they've got
they have options.
they've got options on options. And one line I could definitely see them doing, and I think is worthwhile, would be to get the Venomous Blade down so they can get that bodyguard off of Selyse.
Mm-hmm.
Because without it, Dustin has the capability of turning into a Warhammer again, and then start intimidating anything that hits the board. And then he can always turn the Warhammer back into a bodyguard from there. Because Dustin does have to worry about March to the Wall here. So he wants to make sure he has these 3 characters on his side by the end of the turn. Otherwise, Martell's gladly going to march either a duped Melisandre or,
Mm-hmm.
worst case, get Stannis off the board.
And the big trick on this deck is what the mercenary contract plus bribery, which Stannis is immune
Yep.
to, but Melisandre is not.
Yeah. So, for example, if Martell right now had mercenary contract and bribery along with the venomous blade, it could get real ugly because you could steal Melisandre, you could then venomous blade Sleece, take away the bodyguard, and then if you can get a military through, that's going to then set up that troublesome march possibility. The fact, Mark, that we have them thinking about what they want to do here makes me think they don't have like a clean or open line like that, or they're debating like other lines as well.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully it's not that there's just so many choices that he's having to weigh between all of his great choices here.
It's quite possible. So we have Gates of the Moon hitting the board. That's not going to do much this turn, but that signals that they're expecting this to go. I would have to imagine at least a couple more turns. We do have Mercenary Contract hitting the board on Melisandre.
Yeah,
So that signals that bribery is either in hand. Yep, here comes the bribery. And Melisandre is now changed sides.
So our theory that he didn't have it because he took so long was nonsense. All right.
Well, it was more of he had possible other lines.
Mm-hmm.
So on at this point of Dustin's kind of out,
No
I could see
blade,
him.
yeah. But
There's still the 3 gold for it. So the 3 gold could be either to get a Venomous Blade down in case the bodyguard comes off, or Aegon Targaryen is still very much a possibility, and he can go grab like Daario Naharis, who can cause all sorts of trouble. We are going to have, interesting, a power challenge led off with Selyse. We'll have Melisandre defend.
If he had Aegon, would we have seen him right then?
Not necessarily. Because if it's Aegon, he may hold him back until challenges come to him because he may be worried that, like, the Seized by the Guard, even though it has 2 gold on it, Dustin could actually cohort that into, like, a Warhammer. So if Aegon had come out of Shadows, he wouldn't have any issue just either turning the bodyguard or Seized by the Guard into Warhammer, then immediately slamming down a character, and then Stannis swings again, slams down another character, and then you essentially wasted Aegon's full potential this turn. We will get Lightbringer standing him up. So no cohort off that challenge. So we'll see if Dustin wants to try and push again. Depends on how much he's worried about the card in Shadows. But given the state of the board, I would not at all be surprised if we do actually have March to the Wall flipped by the Martell player next turn.
Right.
Because we have Dustin down to 3 cards in hand. So just further attritioning down the board. It's definitely very feasible. But we will have Dustin pass here. So if Aegon's a line, we'll definitely see it here. Yep, here comes Aegon. Okay. Here comes Daario. And he's going to be able to get intrigue and power through. So we'll have the intrigue.
Yeah, Dustin has to protect the military, right? Because he can't have the bodyguard. Well, there's no Venomous Blade coming down now anymore.
Yeah.
So it
was so at this point, and the military is not going to happen. He's just and that Alistair Florent discard definitely hurts there. But the intrigue with Daario allows him to stand up Melisandre because of mercenary contract, and then he can do the power for the full 7, win unopposed. So we actually have 7 power on the Martell Dragon side at this point, which is very comfortable to be at. So Dustin's in quite a
So
predicament.
Martell probably doesn't march. Melisandre does because there's no way for like I just don't know the rules well enough. There's no way for Dustin to get her back, right?
Correct. It's possible they could march her. I think they'll
I just
likely
don't think
pick a
that would be
different.
the target, right?
Yeah, I imagine they would pick another option. If they did choose to march her, they do get the mercenary contract back. So if they have like hit another bribery, they do get some flexibility.
Oh right, mercenary contract's not even terminal. Okay.
Yeah. So that would be like the case to do it, and the fact that she's duped, being able to just toss 2 copies away, and then at best there's a third they can draw into, might be a risk they are fine with.
Just from a, I guess is this a Nedley point of view, from a thematic point of view, it seems like mercenary contract should have required the character to have a military icon.
Yeah.
Melisandre the mercenary doesn't sound quite right.
Hmm. So they're
All
both
right, so
thinking
got
over the
some heavy
plots
thinking on
here.
plots going on.
Yeah. So right now, Dustin, he selected his plot, but he could be flipping either a second force march, barring the gate, or Win or You Die, or Heir to the Iron Throne. Um, I could definitely see a case for Win or Die happening here with just 2 cards in hand. His econ base is pretty good, so he can likely put everything out. The problem is he's not quite in that closeout territory. If he had like 9 power,
Right.
Win Die here would definitely be a bit more feasible to try and get the closeout. Barring the Gates isn't awful since this Martell deck still wants to do all sorts of like come into play tricks, and Ariane Martell is in hand, so that's a possibility of definitely happening. Uh, I can't imagine he'll flip air just because of the small board and knowing March to the Wall is still a threat. So um, we do have Barring the Gates into Retaliation. So that's going to make Dustin go first. Barnes going to again limit the tricks that we can have of cheating characters into play. But Retaliation with the 2 fiefdoms, that's going to make sure Martell's got plenty of gold to work with. And this is definitely the time where Dustin wants to be able to get Warhammer down. We do have Barrack Dondarrion. He's a really good piece to see here because we have both Valors are gone. Barrack's great against Regulus, but the high risk, splitting up this board. But that's another renowned body. He's Rolor, so him and Stannis can really do some
Yeah, I
work
mean
here.
both resets are gone.
Yeah. Yeah, so at this point, the only way to fix that up is to get,
Oh, this
again,
is great. So just
Surgery
more
Drinkwater.
bodies is what he needs here. So, right.
Yeah. Yeah. And Shireen's is really handy just as a ward against the military challenge because it can cause sequencing to be very awkward,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you're able to then just straight kneel
She's
a
not.
target.
She's not Rolora though.
Yeah, not R'hllor. Venomous Blade's still out there. We have Greenblood Traders, so definitely trying to find more options. Because Martell player does not want Dustin to keep this full board, because then Heir to the Iron Throne is very good. Because even with like a March to the Wall, you'd be able to have Shireen like go away, and Sleece then can turn into like Robert, which at that point then you're in closeout territory because with 3 renowned bodies you can just close the down a board real quick.
Yeah.
And Dustin does have to just focus on not losing too much from this 2 claim swing back. Because we do have 7 power already on Martell's side. So a very solid set of challenge is on their end. If they get up into like, let's see, between renown and some unopposed, they could reasonably up to, I think, about like 12 power potentially.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if they put Dario down for like another renown body. We do have Begging Brother with a gold, so that would seem to indicate that Venomous Blade may come down here to take Shireen off the board and then stop her trigger.
Begging Brother could
Uh,
stop Barrick's save too, right?
that's also another threat as well. Of course, if Venomous Blade doesn't drop in marshaling, if the military were to go through, you would see Shireen and Celise picked with the bodyguard for the save. Like, Barrick is not going to be selected. So we do have Venomous Blade. Oh, actually, never mind. Excuse me. Venomous Blade on
Printed
Barrick is
cost.
actually better. Yeah,
Okay.
because of printed costs. So yeah, deleting Barrick for the cheap.
Oh.
So yeah. So yeah, excuse me. There's that line, which is a little bit better.
that worked.
Yeah, so that actually hurts quite a bit there, especially with Orphan of the Green Blood with gold on it. So I have to imagine the target for Orphan is balancing Arahota by the end of this round.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, things are not looking great on Dustin's side. But going to the challenges, we'll have Intrigue led off. Interested to see how they block for this one. So it's going to be 9-1. Intrigue pulls Hand's Judgment, and we have Bodyguard being exchanged out into Warhammer. So Stannis is grabbing Intimidate here. And Stannis is still able to do 2 more challenges. If he does the power challenge, he'll have to send, everyone. Because currently they can block for exactly 8 on the other side. The problem is there's so much military on the opposing side, he won't be able to push through the military unless they just let it through, and they might be fine doing that. But based on how these boards are playing out, I very much would expect Dustin to be thinking about you win or you die next turn, just to be able to get some cards drawn, because he's got the econ base and he just needs to start
So
trying to
he can't, but
push.
he cannot intimidate down at Hota here, right? Because of the 6.
Yeah, he won by 5, so he can intimidate targets. I think his focus might be to slam down just another power icon or an intrigue icon.
Well, 2 military claims really bad, right? I mean,
Yeah. It's very bad since Martial Wall hasn't happened, so he still needs to cycle for bodyguard in this sequence. I'm actually surprised he hasn't gone and grabbed one. What's that? Unless he's planning to do a military through here and is expecting to go through, which, if that happens, so yeah. If he does the military here,
mm-hmm.
Martell can either block it for the full 8 to win it, but all their militaries then melt out, or they let it through, in which case he can then turn the Warhammer back to a bodyguard, and
Mm-hmm.
then he'll be protected against March to the Wall. And that's what we're actually seeing here. We're seeing they'll just let it through. They want to be able to swing this military through, kill the Desert Raider, So yeah, this is where he's actually going to cycle Azora High Reborn in to seal the hand. Oh, okay. So he's actually going to force them uh, a different way. So he's turning the military challenge off completely. He is going to let the power challenge through, though. It's going to be claim 2, which will definitely hurt. But this is actually even better than grabbing the bodyguard, because now he can defend the military, he'll keep his board, March the Wall isn't as threatening, so he's actually opened up Heir to the Iron Throne as a possible line. So if I'm the Martell player, I'm very much considering flipping You Win or You Die next turn, because I have a wider board. Going first is going to be really strong, so I think Dustin is still better set to go You Win or You Die next turn, because that Venomous Blade is going to be coming back to hand almost assuredly. Erahota is going to be going back to hand. So that's a lot to contend with.
Well, good job by Dustin. That seems uh, Alejandro's saying in chat too. Like that, that was a good, that was a good sequence.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that was very good, and especially since I have to imagine, just like us, they didn't expect Dustin to trade the Azor to go grab Seal to hand, but that Seal does a lot more for Dustin than the bodyguard would have.
All right, so
So
if
it's
we add 2 Win or You Dies here, it's actually going to be a coin flip, I think. Right?
yes, yep. With it tied 9-9, it would be a straight up coin flip. Force March is definitely an option, but there's not a lot of military icons on Dustin's side to really get a lot of benefit, because at that point you just kneel Erahota, then you bounce in the hand, and you're not going to kneel
Dustin
Stannis
really wants
again.
to go first, right? Or
He does, but he also wants to close here as well. Because unless he has Robert Baratheon and there's no mercenary contract bribery on the other side, not having to claim might not be enough.
well, Dustin has made up his mind.
Yeah, Dustin, I
Unlike us, he seems sure.
yeah.
By
Because
the
at
way,
least in terms,
question for the chat. Or we were sounding a little robotic, getting some feedback yesterday. Not feedback, but we were a little robotic. How do the voices from commentators sound today? If someone from chat could type in how things sound. Sorry, Tom. Go ahead.
so at least in terms of plot options that Martell is looking at, they have At the Gates, which I expect they're not flipping here. All right, so we actually get the plots flipped. So we do have them going Win or Die, so they're thinking that they have the line to either fully pressure down the board or close out here, and at 9 power, that's very reasonable. We know they have Dario for Renown. They've got Jorah for Renown. So they've got options there, and then power challenge on top of that. We have Dustin deciding to go with Heir
Oh,
to the Iron Throne, and
whiff.
apparently he whiffed, which out of 34 cards is
It's a card
definitely
game.
not something you expect.
It's a card game.
But that does Dustin's choice of Heir here is definitely interesting, because
Interesting.
I think Win or Die afford him just a little bit more to work with. But we'll definitely see how this plays out. He's got 6 gold. He's got lots of econ to work with. Altra Florent, that's a very good body to get down. We got Azor's High replayed. Problem is still, Venomous Blade can take away the intrigue icon and really limit the number of challenges that Dustin can get through here. And we have a hunting accident on Melisandre, which I imagine is just hoping to cohort that into something, since he's likely not too concerned about stopping the kneel. And we're going to have it passed over to Martell's side. I'll be rather surprised if by the end of marshalling we have not had Arahota bounce the hand and then the Venomous Blade replayed to get Sleece Baratheon off the board.
Well, why didn't he play Arahota back to hand last turn?
Barring the gate, and he didn't have the gold, so...
Well, but I mean, he lost dominance. Okay. So you're still expecting to come, like, you play Arahota, get a challenge out of him? No.
Yeah, well,
Maybe.
I don't think getting a challenge on him matters as much as limiting Dustin's challenges, because again, you still have 12 gold, so they could still possibly just put a wide enough board out that they don't care. But if you are not able to get to 15 this turn on the Martell side, you know immediately what's going to happen on the following turn. Win or Die is going to get flipped, and Dustin should be in good shape to actually get a closeout at that point. Marshall, we get, though, another Dornish Fiefdom. Get Dorn played out and stooped. And here's Hota being bounced to hand. And Venomous Blade coming down for 3. And it's going to go on the Orphan. And I have to imagine, yep, there goes Sleece for the target. And they also sit on exactly 5 gold.
Or nope.
Nope, and then they swap in Ariane, so they get the flexibility at that point.
Hota can come back in with her.
Yeah. Dustin at this point, very much would love to get that seized by the guard turned into a bodyguard at this point. I have to imagine. I just don't see a good way out. He still has enough military to survive with everything standing, but he has to still attempt to do some challenges here. And Seal the Hand does give quite a bit of flexibility. So he's doing Power Challenge with everyone. This is going to make the Hota trigger very awkward because removing Alistair just kicks Alistair out since Stannis is in. If you kick Stannis out, Stannis is still going to participate because the roller trait on Alistair Florent.
Why did he have to kneel Stannis?
Well, this is so Azor Ahai Reborn. If he had sent just Alistair Florent, he could have done Arahota to kick Alistair out, and then that also removes Stannis as well, because Stannis needs someone else participating to stay in the challenge.
I get that, but he sent Shireen? Isn't that your kind of Hota protection right there?
Well, at that point, if you send Shireen, you just kick out Alistair Florent, you block for enough strength since Shireen's not Rulor traded, and then it's just a 1 strength power challenge.
I keep forgetting she's not Rulor traded, that's why. Sorry.
Yeah, and I think this is going to be a misplay here because we have Hota going to remove Stannis when Azor is still on him. So we still have Stannis in this challenge because of Alistair Florent.
Is he misunderstanding the rules there?
Well, it all comes down to he can either remove a 3-strength character at best, in which case Dustin's still going to win by have 8 strength in the in the challenge. So this is where.
Yeah, I mean it's he thought he could kick Stannis, but he.
Yeah, and this definitely hurts because he had the power icons to actually block fully.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he thought he was going to be able to get this challenge. So this right here is the Hota misplay. This could actually cost him big. Because that is absolutely how it would operate.
All right, so when Dustin says we'll have to check, I mean, we don't have judges on this tournament.
Yeah, and it's one where I'm not quite exactly going to like hop in.
Choose a participating character, and then the language under, and it says considered to be participating.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
All right, let's see here. So if we go to, what's it called, Azor Ahai anyway?
Yeah, Zora High Reborn.
Let's see if it's anything in the FAQ here.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything.
No, this isn't gonna
Yeah.
do it there. Well, but what both you and Alejandro think he's still in the challenge, right? I
Yeah.
don't know. I'm not official.
Yeah, it's he is considered to be participating in each challenge, which controls ruler character. Ruler character is still attacking. He is still participating. So Irahota removed him, but he's still. But after that, I guess the way to think about it, after that resolves, though, there's still an attacking ruler. So Stance would still, you know, be into the challenge. Because the condition of Stance to participate is just strictly attack and roll. So if there was a game state where you attacked with a challenge and somehow like cheated in a roll character or roll trait, then that would also have brought Stannis in. So as long as that fact is true, there's the attacking roller character. Everything else is good to go.
Right. So if he had knocked out Alistair, it would have knocked out both, right? Would have knocked out Stannis with Alistair.
Well, it would have knocked Alistair out, but Stannis would still declare it in. So that's
Because
why.
he swung. Oh.
Yes, yeah, he put everyone in. So, and at best, the Hota could have kicked out Alistair Florent, which removes 3 strength, and then it would have been an 8 strength power challenge. In which case, again, he could have blocked with Orphan the Greenblood, Bacon Brother, and Aegon Targaryen. Were you
Let's see. Some standby painter pointed in. It says the constant ability cannot turn itself on. Oh, but that's something else. Oh, but that's something else. Okay, I shouldn't have.
Yeah, right now.
Yeah, I should not type things.
Yeah, because I'm just looking at the World Cup Discord, and they're also agreeing with the removal. Yeah. Yeah, so based on this, based on it being a World Cup match, it may read into kind of that awkward position of, well, this is the rules,
Yeah.
and essentially like doing any sort of like take back on the matter.
No, there's
I
no
would
take
imagine
back.
is going to be no,
It's
because
just a
it's
ruling.
one where
Yeah.
the ruling itself is correct, and also they did have the option still to full on block the power challenge. Because actually, let me count the strength real quick,
Well, but the thing is,
just
it's not like
academically.
it's not like Iron Throne gives you a running strength
Yeah,
total.
yeah, yeah. And even in person, unless you're asked, you wouldn't have to offer that information.
Right.
If you're asked, you would have to, truthfully answer, the
Mm-hmm.
game state. But technically, you would just have to be like power challenge. You turn them all to the, you turn them all sideways. If they ask how strong it is, you know, then you can provide that information. But just in terms of like what was on board, in terms of the options, so it was power for 11 with all three characters.
So basically, nothing's
Uh,
going to get turned back. This is the correct
yeah,
thing. Iron Throne interpreted it
correct.
properly.
Iron Throne is correct. This is not a case of Iron Throne, being coded incorrectly for this interaction.
Right, which is what we got on that Stark location the other day, right?
Yep, and we have Anil hopping in as well, so he'll probably also kind of
Yeah, I
give like
mean,
a final decision. But just looking at like the board state of like how to defend on this one, so they had Aegon, Melisandre, Begging Brother, and Orphan, and before Arahota came in, they also had Arianne. So they would have had 7, 10, 17 strength on the power challenge if they blocked with everyone, which they didn't have to. So they could have defended this power challenge with like everyone but let's just say Aegon Targaryen to keep a power icon up, won it, and then you have Seal the Hand can stand up Stannis. He can swing a military challenge, and then you could have brought in Arahota at that point to kick him out. And then Martell gets free swing on the board. So it's interesting that they went very aggressive with the Arahota right off the bat,
right.
especially still knowing like Seal the Hand's there, because now you're going to have challenge one. You have two defenders down. We're going to have Warhammer kick in. Hota is already on the board, so that trick's done. So you're also able to force Hota down and intimidate. You can swing another challenge, uh, plus have Stannis standing. So at this point, you can kneel Arahota, you can kneel Jorah, and then you can. See, he still wouldn't be able to stop the power swing if he blocks that way. So they could still two claim you. But that should be enough to let Dustin survive this round.
Well, for my own selfish purposes, I want this to move along because we've got another match starting in 9 minutes.
Yeah, and may have to join that one in media res. And actually, if Dustin wanted to lock out the power challenge completely, he also has the option of turning attachment into a bodyguard. So he could even let the military challenge through if he wants to instead defend the power challenge. In which case you can like force Melisandre down, just have her kneeling, and you're done with. She's knelt for essentially the rest of the game, as long as hunting accident's there. Uh, so yeah, there's not a lot of great options from the Martell player at this point because Stannis was able to get through on this challenge. We are having claim be applied, so it's going to put Dustin up to 10 before Renown, and he's getting the option to cohort here. And actually, one possibility is we could see after the military challenge. Let me math real quick. Okay, so another line Dustin has here. Resolving this challenge, he can kneel Arahota. He'll stand with Lightbringer or seal the hand at his choice. Swing the military. He can then, if it goes undefended, he can kneel down Jorah Mormont, and then he can turn seal the hand into Red God's Blessing to have the strength to beat the power challenge. So he would give up the intrigue challenge at that point, but he would be able to get the most challenges he can on the Stannis, block the power swing back, plus prevent the military challenge. So we'll see if Dustin sees that line, because that puts him in a very favorable spot to then win die next turn and close, because he's going to be right there to be able to do it.
So,
Uh,
kind of a separate question here. We just had like a 15-minute downtime for rules in a normal tournament. Does that affect the timer at all? Or you just kind of
It
live with it, right?
it can vary. As I believe sometimes it comes to a judge's call on like how quick of a ruling or clarification it is. I've definitely had cases where there was a very like involved rule question in games I've been in, which like took roughly about 5 minutes, and the judge, essentially said you get a 5 minute extension. It's like pretty much just because it was making sure game state's proper and all that stuff, and ultimately you'd rather have a game be able to play out correctly and within the time frame that's fair to both players, instead of a rules question comes up and if I'm playing a faster deck than you, I get an advantage if a rules clarification has to be resolved and it takes up like 5 minutes of our actual game time. So usually I would expect that you know they would allow that extension. um, Now, interesting, we did see the military challenge. They did defend it. Um, Dustin's going to win by 3, though. So he's going to be able to, again, stop the power challenge on the swing back here. Actually, excuse me, forgot about Desert Raider.
Yeah. Yeah, I was curious why he did a power challenge there, but I guess power's good. I
Well,
mean, wait.
the power challenge first allows the Desert Raider can't steal the military. So yeah, forgot about the Desert Raider here. That will still let the power through. But that's still not going to be enough to close out. So Dustin's still in a spot where win or die next turn. Still very reasonable. So Greenblood Trader killed. Interesting they did that instead of like Orphan the Greenblood just to get the Venomous Blade back again. Unless they're just really wanting the power icons at this point.
Can he use this cohort trigger?
Yes, he can go trigger right here. So he took Seized by the Guard, which at this point it's fallen off next turn, so he might as well turn it into a worthwhile attachment. And he's grabbing Bodyguard. So that's going to be able to, again, prevent the March to the Wall issue. He's still going to be able to defend the military. And based on how he decided to play that one, I'm expecting Seal the Hand may not be triggered unless the military. Well, actually, he's going to just intimidate the Desert Raider. Yeah, that. Claiming the Greenblood Traders. Interesting there. But we're going to get power coming through, Seal the Hand to stand, and unfortunately no power icon, so it's going to go unopposed, but it's going to still keep Dustin at 11 power. And he's now going to be winning Dom, so we're going to have Dustin get up to 12 power. And what really hurts here is Hote is on the board. Venomous Blade is currently essentially pinned without another trick. There are ways to get that back between Ironbank Lavit's due, so it's not necessarily gone for good. But this
But
is
if you're Martell, you
definitely.
kind of wanted Venomous Blade on the board just so you don't lose it to reserve here, right? I mean, he's only going to save one card.
Yeah, and the one card I have to imagine is probably going to be Ariane. I have to imagine. But your board's also wide enough where you could argue like just having the Venomous Blade is value in of itself. But Desert Raider now being on the board, this is very awkward for the Martell player because the plots they have remaining, they have the choice between At the Gates or they can do March to the Wall. March to the Wall is almost what they have to flip here if they want to be able to go first. The problem is, we had quite a discard. We had Bribery, Ariane, Meg the Mighty, and Littlefinger Toss. So I'm interested in what that last card remaining is. And we're actually going to have Force March flipped into March to the Wall. So Dustin actually is deciding his hand is fine enough to close out here. He just wants to go first.
Gotcha.
Interesting. Tareen's being selected here, so he
Well,
might not have another Rollor character.
But isn't it also like Shireen's the one who can get Venomous Bladed here?
Yes. So one option was you do Force March first. You can have Alistair kneel to hit a military icon, and then when he leaves play, because there's another Rollor character, you can then kneel another character. So he could have, by having Force March go first, knelt 3 characters on the opposing board. But if he doesn't have necessarily a good character base in hand, I imagine Stannis. Yeah, Stannis is going to get knelt here. He wants to just force it down. He's got Seal the Hand in his Zor, so kneeling Stannis doesn't matter much here. So yeah, that's another case where it's like, if he has no characters in hand, marching Serene makes sense. But if he had like any decent characters, especially since you've seen 2 briberies hit the discard pile already, you may have decided to just kind of like go for it and force down quite the kneel out, and then just try and pretty much brute force your way through at that point. But this is still very good for Dustin. Because at this point, we have Venomous Blade going back, kind of expected, but no good targets. And he's actually going to repeat. He wants the full kneel out. He is forcing the Martell player to essentially top deck the answer here. Because, again, no Desert Raider for tricks. He could lead with a military challenge first, intimidate something down, and that would give him.
Is he running priests?
Red Priest? Yeah. And we've only seen the one that was on setup, so that's another thing. If he's got 1 or 2 Red Priests, that could also just like essentially end this game, because you could pluck out the answers that from your opponent's hand, and then you just swing, and you're done. And 6 cards in hand, 27 draws. It's quite possible he'll have at least 1 Red Priest. Robert Baratheon would also be huge, because the biggest concern with this match is, again, the mercenary contract bribery and putting down Robert Baratheon, where your opponent would, without even thinking, go mercenary contract bribery and steal him, is about as backbreaking of a move you can have. And if for whatever reason this game doesn't end on this turn, the next set of plots would be Dustin's Win or You Die against the Martell players at the gates. So that also would not be the greatest possibility for Martell Dragon to be able to close this one out. Yeah, it looks like there's some lag issues happening. But so far we've got dupe on Stannis, Dragon supports have all hit, and there we go, the Red Priest. So Dustin's about to find out just how bad things are. He's also going to take that Venomous Blade.
Yeah,
there's only one in the deck.
Venomous Blade.
He's snapping that out of the hand immediately. He's not even going. I can't imagine there's another set of cards in there that he even cares about right now. And if there is, then that's a whole other problem. But he still has 6 gold to work with as well, so even one more character.
We don't know whether Dustin's thinking here, or he's still just suffering from lag.
Yeah. But yeah, at this point, it has to be just like snapping the Venomous Blade. Yep. Oh, and then we get Robert Baratheon. This is what I, especially slapping him down like there, that tells me immediately there is no bribery mercenary contract
Mm-hmm.
combo in hand, and I can't imagine there's a lot of answers left because Stan is going to be able to stand shove through all the challenges,
Good
and they're going to
session.
call it.
Okay. All right, so let's congratulations. I think we want to get to
Yeah.
uh,
So hopping from that game over real quick. Let's see. All right. Yep. It looks like it's about 5 minutes in. We'll see how deep into it. But yeah, that puts USA 5-1 for the round. So that will clinch the round for USA. Oh, and we're actually perfect timing.
yeah, I think they were holding off a little bit
All
for
right,
us there.
perfect.
All right, I'm going to stop the stream real quick and then restart it. So just stick around if you're watching on Twitch. And if you have to refresh, refresh. But I'm just breaking it up so when I export it to YouTube, these will be separate videos.